Hello, wonderful people. Welcome back. Okay, let's start off here at chapter 3 and let's take a look at an opening sentence here from the readers. It says, recall from chapter 1 that the external environment is a set of conditions outside the firm that affects the firm's performance. And that's what this chapter will be going into in detail. Figure 3.1, external environmental analysis. You can see there that it does a great job. We're going to start off with the general environment analysis, and then we're going to take a look at the inside of those as the rings move towards the center, which is the competitor analysis. Okay, so let's start off with the definition for, or at least an overview of the definition for general environment, composed of trends in the broader society that influence the industry and firms within. And of course, we're going to start off with the demographics. The demographics could be looking at things like the changes in the population as far as the size of the population, age structure of the population, geographic distribution, and ethnic mix, to include income distribution as example. One of my favorites that was in the textbook that I hadn't seen before reading a textbook was the term coined Zoomers. Now, I'm a baby boomer. Yes, I know some of you are surprised I'm a little old or older. And as a baby boomer, I have never heard of the word Zoomer. Zoomers are baby boomers with active lifestyles. So, what the point being, the example was Home Depot. They recognize that the Zoomers are very much favoring having do it for me type of services versus Home Depot's do it yourself strategy. Now, for the longest time, and it worked quite successfully for Home Depot and Lowe's of the do-it-yourself, paint your rooms, put in the floors, etc. But now it's do it for me. For an example, recently we had a new floor put in. I went to was Lowe's actually, talking with them at Lowe's and saying, well, I don't have time to put in a floor, but I'd like to get a new floor put in. And of course, they then act as a conduit to other businesses that subcontract that do the businesses through the coordination of Lowe's. So Lowe's will work with another business who will, I'm sure, give a residual back to Lowe's, but will come in, and it looks great for Lowe's, right? Because I mean, they're outsourcing this, and at the same time, the customer's happy because I have someone coming in and putting in the floors versus myself putting in the floors. First of all, that requires talent, and second off, it requires a lot of skill. Skill and time, both which I sometimes find lacking. So I'm much more of the do it for me, in particular with my lifestyle. So that was a great strategy. I mean, Lowe's and Home Depot have hit a home run with that. I believe Home Depot was the first one to kind of move and gravitate towards that, and of course Lowe's followed in close too. So you're seeing more and more of that thought process, looking at the demographics, the baby boomers in particular, those of higher income are able to afford this, and they're still around in quite large numbers. They being the people with their funds, they're able to pay for it. Concerns, economic trends can be something that could have an impact on an organization. Of course, we've seen what's happened here in the last several years with the anemic growth of our GDP. Just recently, at the recording of this particular chapter, I had just learned that when the numbers were adjusted for last quarter, we actually had a decline in the GDP. So these types of impacts can have an impact on the psyche of the consumers out there, and it even can have a psyche as far as having a barrier to entrance type of uh, results and exiting impacts too. So anyway, so you can see where these trends come in. Political trends, new laws, new regulations that go into place. I had using a small business as an example, I had a small business. The gentleman came to speak to me, and he was looking at starting a wood stove business. Now, here in the interior of Alaska, it gets really cold, and he was going to start off a wood stove. There was a high demand. It was he felt that there was definitely a need for additional distributors of wood stove, or I should say, a retailer of wood stoves. And so he had already purchased his inventory by the time he came to talk with me and was chatting with me. And I had read recently where there had been some EPAs. I'm talking within days of this conversation. Some EPA changes that were going to have an impact on future sales for wood stoves. And as it turned out, numerous of his wood stoves that were coming into his inventory did not meet the new EPA requirements that burn cleaner, resulting in less residue being put into the air. So how many people were going to buy his stove knowing that in 4 to 5 years, a lot of these stoves would be classified as out of compliance with EPA? Even if they grandfathered it in, it's just a psyche again that people are like, well, do I want to buy a wood stove that's going to be obsolete in just a few years according to EPA laws and regulations? So all of these things can have an impact on an organization. They've talked about the social, cultural trends, society attitudes. Here in the United States, in particular, we've become much more health conscious. When I was a young person growing up, McDonald's, besides having 25-cent hamburgers, McDonald's was, their food, French fries, hamburgers, shakes, ice cream cones were all high in fat content, not very healthy. And of course, in today's world, now McDonald's strategic leaders, they looked at the social cultural trends. They recognized that to stay in business, they needed to take steps, and they did. And now you can buy salads, you can get more healthier prepared types of foods. So though they still have some of their high fat, now they have a nice choice between the two. So it's just not one strict avenue as far as products that they sell. How about those tech trends? Had any influence on what's going on out there? New types of technologies can have, let's take something like production. You get the tech trends with production. You're seeing, going back to McDonald's, you're starting to see a lot of your companies now using tech to be the front line when customers are coming in as far as handling orders. So you're starting to see a little bit more of the technology coming into place. Some people don't like that, but that's just the way it is. I had a young man once when I was recruiting up here, and I was doing, I wasn't recruiting, I was a recruiter, but I wasn't recruiting, but I was doing a workshop on the career 10, 15 years out and career opportunities, and one young guy was like, well, we shouldn't do away with jobs and replace them with robots. And of course, that had been going on for quite a while. And I didn't have the heart to tell him that, but I said, "Well, why is that?" He goes, "Well, you're going to be putting people out of work." And I reminded him that you get paid a whole lot more to build robotics, to maintain and calibrate the robotics. So maybe we're putting out more low wage type work out to pasture, but at the same time, then it's being replaced with more high wages and more technical advanced fields. But as you know, in organizations, as you're bringing in that technology, there is more cost involved because there's a higher level of intellect that's often required, a higher level of hands-on experience that's often required. So there is that expense that's a trade-off with when you get it out on the floor, the production, the overall economies of scales that start to kick in, that the robotics can perform 24/7 if needed. Uh, that the human labor force would probably be a little bit more expensive in most cases, not all. All right, I better get away from that one because that gets people upset because it's more of a political football. All right, global trends like China and India. I remember when I was first teaching with Wayland Baptist University, and I was talking about these two giants, and in my opinion, many moons ago that these two were going to become economic powers, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who saw it. I'm sure a lot of businesses saw this. And how are you going to take advantage of that? Whether it be to outsource some of your manufacturing or some of your partnerships and joint ventures with these particular companies within these countries, and so there's lots of things you would have to consider when you're looking at the global trends that we could spend hours upon hours just in this one category alone. How about global, pardon me, the physical trends? We start looking at things like global warming is having an impact on. Now, I understand some of you may have a disagreement with this. I like to use the word climate change because regardless of what your feelings are on global warming, the climate does change, and it's been doing that since I can remember. But it has an impact, right? People are looking for more green type of responses to products. I saw one with a tent here of not too long ago. Matter of fact, maybe it was even in your chapter. I can't remember where I saw it at now, but I just remember seeing the picture where the tent had on the top had solar panels, so everything that if you brought any of your electrical equipment with you, you could recharge right there from your tent because it was using the solar panels to create energy. So it's just kind of cool to see, you know. So you get your people that are buying these products. I mean, who are they going to buy? The old school, or are they going to buy the more the upscale where it fits their lifestyles more conveniently? Plastic bags. There's another one that was mentioned in your textbook. I kind of get tickled with plastic bags. Society's becoming much more anti-plastic bags. Again, I see a lot of things go full gamut. I remember when paper bags was the standard in grocery stores, and of course that was leading to too many of our trees being cut down, and so the push was towards plastic, and now the plastics are destroying as much of our forests, if not more, because of its pollution levels. So now that is being something we're turning away from. So I guess we're always trying to improve on perfection, but you in business are going to be looking at the trends. What are the trends that are driving the economics? Okay, that was good. We went through that pretty quick. Analyzing the industrial environment. Look over, what is it, Porter's, I believe it is, Mr. Porter's five forces model. Uh, I'm reading my notes here. Each force can reduce the probability that a firm can earn profits competing in an industry. First one of the potential entrants. They add additional products. So they're looking at potential entrants in as a I guess a threat would be the right word when we're looking at that particular choice of words. Um, think about by adding more production, more competition that's getting involved. We have more production that's involved by just the pure sheer numbers of more production being involved, i.e., we have more wood stoves. Like I go back to that wood stove owner. So now we had 3 wood stove stores in town. Now we have 4 wood stove stores in town, and now we have more inventory in town, which is probably going to drive the pricing down a little, in the sense that there's a larger inventory, more to choose from, and as far as companies go too, so people are doing a lot of shopping and they're doing a lot of comparison. So these types of things can have an impact when you're analyzing the industrial environment. Let's see here. What else did I want to touch on? You can go through it's a little bit more in detail than your textbook. Substitute products, they talked about that. Uh, they gave the examples going from vinyl to cassette tapes to CDs to MP3s, so you can see what happens when that's taking place. You have the substitutes taking place. How did they touch on that in your textbook? Anything further on that? I like to use the cassette tape as a pretty good example because when we look at the cassette tape, I was seeing online here recently, or was it on the news, where the cassette tape is no longer even being included in the dictionary because it's become obsolete. So hopefully, not too many companies waited until that fact before they were caught with their uh, um, inventory filled with cassette tapes and no one to sell them to. Okay, I go back to the VCR. Many of you probably remember the VCR, and I'm not sure how many of you remember the beta tapes that also came out around that time frame with the VCR tapes. Of course, now they've been replaced by DVDs, and of course, then now we're Blu-rays, and now we're going into 3D type of television and the special cassette players and the special. So, again, you when you're looking at these um, competing, those who are competing in the industry, trying to stay ahead with the technology trends can be quite important to your business. What else did I touch on here? Talked about how suppliers could increase price or reduce quality while selling at the same prices during what I would call favorable supply and demand periods. So these are things that you have to be on guard for when you're looking at these forces that could reduce your earning potential while competing in your industry. And oh yeah, that's another good one too when they're talking about the um, bargaining power of the buyers. The buyers try to reduce their costs by bargaining with selling firms for lower prices, higher quality, greater levels of service. Um, Buyers who purchase in large quantities obviously are going to have power in the negotiation process. Buyers could switch to other suppliers. Actually, I highly recommend that, especially when I'm counseling small businesses, to make sure that they're considering that as an option, because you don't want to get tied into one supplier, and then that one supplier could, because you've got all your eggs in one basket, could make it very difficult for you to quickly switch gears to another supplier. So it becomes a little bit more of a hindrance and maybe not very cost effective, even though they may be charging you higher rates and maybe offering you less quality at the same rates. So these are things you need to consider. And the buyers, they could even integrate backwards into the seller's industry. Why do I need to sell it? Either I buy them or I set up where we're taking that role. Investopedia had a nice definition for backwoods integration. Quote, a form of vertical integration that involves the purchase of suppliers. Companies will pursue backward integration when it will result in improved efficiency and cost savings. It seems like a dull moment, but yes. For example, backward integration might cut transportation costs, improve profit margins, and make the firm more competitive. Rivalry among existing firms, a set of actions and reactions between competitors as they compete for an advantageous market position. The stronger the differentiation strategy often leads to an established brand loyalty. Differentiation strategy. This is an action plan the firm develops to produce goods or services that customers perceive as being unique. We talked about that in earlier, either I think it was this chapter, it might have been chapter 2. But it's important that you have services that the customers perceive as being unique in ways that are important to the customers. Differentiation strategy. Let's see here. It says here in my notes, take a look at table 3.3 to help you to better recognize the characteristics of current and future competitors. So that's pretty cool. Meaningful information about your competitor's current strategy help the firm better predict a competitor's behavior. Think about that. Let me say that one more time. Meaningful information about your competitor's current strategies help the firm better predict a competitor's behavior. I don't want to say spies, but doing your due diligence, looking at your competitors, who knows? Maybe talking to a supplier that works with both of you and just asking questions about what you could do better in comparison to what's being done with other companies. I mean, you just find out so much information through good communications, through good observation, through good due diligence, and of course, um, then if you can better predict your customers, or pardon me, your competitors' behavior pattern, it can give you an edge when you're putting together your strategy process to take care of the betterment of your firm. It says here, a firm will want to avoid attacking strengths, instead attack weaknesses. So when you're doing those SWOT analysis, when you're doing your INO types of analysis and your RVBs types of analysis, you're really looking for an opportunity to um, where are your competitors weak at, and take advantage of that. Understanding where your weaknesses are too, right? I mean, if you understand where your weaknesses are, you can better ensure that you strengthen yourselves too, and at least give yourself a perceived strength, and have people play into your more actual strengths. I like to use sports analogies with that. I used to love to play table tennis, and my backhand was my strength. People would, play into my forehand. Well, I kept working at developing that forehand, and eventually everybody started playing into my true strength. Okay, now that I bragged I'm a good table tennis player, and it doesn't have a whole lot of impact on Chapter 3. But Chapter 3 is a great chapter. A lot of information. I kind of went through it quickly, hopefully not too quickly. Take a few minutes. There's going to be questions on your exam, obviously from all the chapters, but in this chapter I think there was maybe one or two extra spiced into the exam because it was such an important chapter, going over a lot of different factors dealing with analyzing the external environment. All right, until we chat again for Chapter 4, remember as we're moving along, be proactive, ask questions. I keep going over that, but these lectures, these short video lectures, don't cover everything. So if there's a question that I didn't cover on something in the chapter, please feel free to get a hold of me, and I'll do my best to cover it to your satisfaction. All right, again, until we chat with the next chapter, be good. Jim out.